are listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Oscar's Guitar Shop with Oscar Jordan, right here on LA Talk Radio.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Oscar's Guitar Shop. I'm Vintage Guitar Magazine contributing writer Oscar Jordan, and I am burdened with glorious purpose. Thank you. Yes. Welcome to my show. I'm engorged, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. I've got an exciting show lined up full of puppets and marionettes and G.I. Joes with lifelike hair and kung fu grip. Yes, I do, and you're going to be happy about it. Yes! It's going to be so cool. If you'd like to support Oscar's Guitar Shop, go to oscarsguitarshop.com, click donations to the show, donate $30 or more, and be entered to win a 1-year subscription to Music Connection magazine and a Mad Professor Electric Blue Chorus. Do it and win. Want to become a sponsor? Email me at oscarsguitarshop@gmail.com. Oscar's Guitar Shop is powered by Music Connection magazine, informing music people, industry professionals, and support services since 1977. Visit them at musicconnection.com. Also, True Tone Music. Visit them at truetonemusic.com, making your music come to life. And last but not least, Mojave Amp Works. Mojave Amp Works. Visit the Oasis of Tone at mojaveampworks.com. Find out what Peter Frampton, Billy Gibbons, and George Lynch are talking about. mojaveampworks.com. And now, it is time. Jon Herington is best known for owning one of the most enviable and highly respected gigs in the world. He plays guitar in Steely Dan. He first joined them on the Two Against Nature album, which won a Grammy in 2001 for Album of the Year, and was asked back for 2003's Everything Must Go. He's been touring with them ever since, and Fagen Becker liked him so much, he was asked to play on Donald Fagen's solo record Morph the Cat and Walter Becker's solo album Circus Money. Through it all, Harrington has lent his talents as a session cat to other artists, but has released a fine handful of solo albums bearing his signature stamp since the early 90s. Last year's Time on My Hands displayed Harrington's gifts as a clever songwriter who can front a band vocally while weaving intelligent blues, rock, and jazz motifs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Jon Herington. Yes.
How you doing, Oscar?
Jon Herington. Wow, it's really you, isn't it? Wow.
I love the applause track.
It's
I
not
love the countdown in the intro.
It's not a track. We had to rent out this huge studio space. We have folding chairs and craft services, and they're all waiting to talk to you. They want to hear what you have to say.
All right. Glad to be here. Happy to be here.
How have you been?
I've been good. Holding up okay. We're about 2/3 of the way through the Mood Swings tour. So the moods are swinging, but so is the band, and it's been pretty cool.
Does that mean everyone on the tour is getting on each other's nerves? Is that what that means?
No, that usually happens sooner than this point, and then you kind of recover from, it's that 2 or 3 week little trouble spot there, and then people kind of get over that first rough spot, and then kind of get used to it again.
So explain to me how this works, because what people should know is that you have to be a great musician, but when you're with a lot of people touring and sitting in buses and planes together, you have to get along. So
yeah, it sure helps. It sure helps. I'm sure there's plenty of stories of bands that didn't get along.
You guys get it. So you guys get it out of the way, and you get on each other's nerves early on in the tour, and then you kind of just smooth out after that. Is that how it works?
Not exactly. It's a pretty great bunch, actually. I think people start to go a little stir crazy because it's sort of like life in a submarine, on a tour bus. It's a little crazy after a while.
Mm.
But it's a great group of people, not just fantastic musicians with no weak link in this chain, but also just really. Over the years, Don and Walter have not only been careful to select and keep calling back players they like, but people that are going to be a good hang on the road for these longer trips that we sometimes do. So it's a great bunch, I got to say.
So along with, like, say, an audition to get into the band, there's these personality profile tests they have to go through, right?
Well, I think people are kind of vetted just by, recommendation and by experience, but there's never been an audition that I've known of. I think people have been asked to do the gig just, by reputation mostly and recommendation. That's usually the way it happens. With me, it happened just because I got called to play some rhythm guitar on a couple of those tracks on Two Against Nature in late 1999 when they were finishing up the Overdubs. And it was somewhere in the course of those sessions that, they asked me if I would be interested in touring, and of course I was thrilled and happy to do it. So.
Well, it says a lot about you. I was reading about you, and apparently someone handed them a copy of your solo album, The Complete Rhyming Dictionary, and they liked your playing so much they asked you to come in. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's something like that. I know Ted Baker was playing keyboards for them at the time and doing all the sessions for Two Against Nature. And he was asked to recommend somebody, and he did have a copy of that record, and he brought it in. And I think he played the first track, or part of the first track. And I think they made a couple wisecrack comments about sort of derivative nature of the writing, which was a more than it wasn't a subtle nod to the music of Weather Report that I loved, but it was clearly influenced by them, and I was okay with that. But they made some kind of wisecrack. But they called me after all, and it worked out well. So it was okay. So apparently they must have heard something that they thought they could use on that record.
Were you a Steely Dan fan before you were asked to join them?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I didn't own every record, but I was a particular fan of Asia, Gaucho, and of course Donald's Nightfly record, because those three are just, to me, the pinnacle of the work they've done, and to just have done one of those records would be a huge achievement, and yet they've done all of those plus more since, and all the earlier records have so much great stuff on them, and so it's really an incredible body of work that they've amassed over the years, and I played those too. I played some of the hits in bars, like Ricky and Reelin' in the Years. And we used to play Asia even. They were in bar bands when I was in high school. So I had a little experience with the music. But, I didn't know all those tunes and didn't know all those records. So it was just a blast to have to learn all that stuff. And I had to do it in a hurry, which it was a bit challenging, but it was fun.
Wow, that's got to be cool. Were you? Okay. First of all, you have been playing a very, very long time, and you went to school and you studied. You had chops galore, and you did session work years before you met Steely Dan. But were you intimidated in any way when they asked you to come to their studio?
I wouldn't say intimidated. They didn't seem intimidating me. Of course, I knew their reputation. I knew that there were stories about, they were, sort of tough in the studio and critical and harsh kind of taskmasters when for session players. But I felt pretty confident, and I had no expectations. I was just sort of happy to try to go there. And overdubbing, it seemed a little easier than if I were to have had to dive into like a whole rhythm section thing. Although that would have been fine too, I think. I was pretty confident and pretty comfortable. And I have to say, they weren't, although they maybe do a lot of takes on the same song, like the first time I went in, and pretty much every time they tend to do a lot of takes, but there was nothing sort of overly fussy about them. They wanted to take their time. They wanted to spend a bit of time doing it, but they were never critical. And in fact, the thing I noticed right away, which made it really easy, was that whenever they had a comment about something I had played, it was never a negative comment. They didn't ever say, like, you hear that? Well, don't do that anymore. They never would do that. Instead, they would point out something that they liked that I played on a track or a take, and then say, oh, you hear that? You hear that? Yeah, do more like that, And even just that subtle difference, makes the vibe so much better, and it put me at my ease, made me comfortable, and the only sort of unusual thing about it was that, again, we just did take after take without a whole lot of instruction or input from them. They said, oh, that was great, do another take. So they were kind of waiting for something maybe to happen, just in my increased familiarity with the track, I guess, each time. And that was the only thing I found sometimes a little frustrating, because I was happy to just do as much as they wanted, but sometimes it would help to have a little more input in terms of, like, okay, well, which way would you like me to? What would you like me to try to do differently? Because it ended up feeling like I was just giving them a bunch of tracks that were all going to be pretty similar, and they would just have to sort of sort through all that stuff later, just making a lot of work for themselves. And but over the years, because I've gotten more comfortable with them and they've gotten more comfortable with me, we don't spend that kind of time as much, and we sort of I'm much more willing to speak up more quickly if I have some thoughts, and if I have some suggestions, I'm more willing to sort of ask them to consider them, and and we each trust each other much more, so it goes fast. Like the last stuff I did for for Donald on his new record, Sunken Condos, his newest solo record. And there's a lot of solo space for me on it, which is really fun. And it was the first time I really felt comfortable enough so that, we didn't end up doing that kind of just take after take without, me changing things. We were actually, he was letting me, shift the focus if I felt like it needed, or if something I wanted to try, he'd let me do it. And so, that's just a function of all that time together. Because it's been a long time. 13 years is quite a long time. I've done, I guess it's 5 records, and I don't know how many tours. I can't count them anymore.
Yeah.
So it's been great, and it has certainly changed over the years.
Mm. Well, tell me something. This is just for me because I've done some session work, and I want to talk about your headspace in terms of like where you are and what you're thinking about when you're doing overdubs. Now, Fagen and Becker, they're famous for doing lots of takes and then taking takes and then chopping things together, just cutting and pasting. They might like the beginning of one solo and they'll connect it to a different solo and from the same guitarist. When you're recording, are you just letting it out? Are you thinking like I want this perfect complete solo, or are you thinking, oh well, I'll just come up with ideas and they're gonna chop it up anyway? I mean, what's going on in your head?
Well, if I'm working by myself, it's a different thing. Like if I'm overdubbing a solo on my own record and it's just me with an amp and a guitar and a computer and I'm recording, then I have a couple different ways of working. But when I'm working for somebody else, and especially for Donald and Walter, say, they don't really. I mean, it doesn't really feel like I can sort of just work the way I would normally work by myself. So basically, we do entire takes almost all the time. I'm there with the understanding and expectation that they might do a comp, a composite of like different things from different things I played from different takes that they liked. At that time, we're not usually talking about that. I mean, I would love it if I could walk out of a session knowing that like we've sort of done all that editing if we needed to do editing, or chosen the solo if we like one best and it's a complete take, I mean, I would love that. But I know after all this many years of playing, I know that's unlikely to happen in most cases, and especially if they're working that way where they're making me do take after take. And I think Donald looks for complete takes when they feel right, because there's a kind of natural quality to them when they work. And there have been a couple times even that didn't used to happen, but I think there were probably a couple things on Sunken Condos, the last record, where I was working, and Michael Lenhart was also producing with Donald. So he was a great, help, I think, to have. They're a great mediator and someone who I could appeal to for help if I felt like, well, I love this solo, but I would love this one little part here where I wasn't happy with what happened on those chord changes, and let's work on just that little section for a while. And Michael would sort of, if he could hear the same thing I was hearing and realized I was after a certain thing, he would kind of sort of help make that happen with Donald. And so there were definitely times where we would take an existing solo and then kind of work with it, or we'd say, okay, well, we love the way this one starts. Why don't we punch in after that, that third phrase or whatever like that. So there were some things like that. But more typically, he would just let me, do another full take. And if there was something I liked about an earlier solo and I could incorporate some of it, I would try to do that. It becomes quite a blur, and it's hard to remember. And when I hear those solos now, I can't tell you which ones were assembled or which ones were complete takes. And it's because when you do that many takes, it's just you just don't remember.
Yeah. Things are going by, and it's just it's you're recording everything, and who knows what they're going to use, and
yeah, it's a different time now with Pro Tools. and other software that you can do that with. Where you have unlimited tracks, you can do unlimited takes. It's a kind of luxury in a way, but also, like when I work alone, I don't like to accumulate like track after track because it seems like I'm going to be making work for myself. I try to sort of, I try to do complete takes, but invariably, as I'm, working on a song or a solo, I'll play a bit, and then something will happen where I'm not happy with it, so I'll stop. So after a few minutes, I'll have many tracks that have that are not complete solos, but that I kind of like up to a point, And then sometimes I'll get some space from that and listen to what I like, and then okay, well let's use this one and then work on the next section, and then sometimes once I finish this long process of kind of getting a section at a time to where I'm happy with it, and then the whole shape of the solo feels right. It's interesting because then I often feel like I've learned something about what the solo needs to sound like and what kind of works and what doesn't, and then I'll just let myself do entire new takes, and I'll realize, okay, I have learned something, and I can do more complete takes with what I've learned from all that kind of that hard labor before then. So there's a lot of ways to do it. Recording is such an interesting thing because unlike the live thing, you can the kind of risks you can take with no danger are what really allows you to invent. You end up composing in a way, and you add to your sort of your improvisational repertoire by sort of like coming up with solutions that please you without the pressure of time never stopping like it never stops when you're playing live. So it's a really different act, but one can sort of feed the other that way. And I always like that part.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to play another cut from your album. By the way, I really like your album.
Okay.
You got some great. You know what? I'm like, God, you have these great motifs that you start your solos off with, and the songs are so strong. This is from the album Time on My Hands, which people in Radioland, if you just like really great guitar playing, really clever lyrics and songs, and this is it. This is really good stuff. This song is called I'll Fix Your Wagon, and it goes a little like this.
To me
Mr. Harrington, you've done it again. You guitar-playing monster, you. That's cool, man. And you know what? I'm going to just say it because I've listened to your stuff. You have a variety of different feels and textures on your album and some of your albums before that, but I get a little bit of taste of some Beatles in there. And,
oh, definitely.
And I can hear that, and I love it. I love it. I miss that in music.
Well, you know, that tune you just played is a pretty interesting one in one way because I remember the first time I went out to buy LPs instead of 45 singles. You know, I had been I was buying a lot of singles because I was a huge AM radio fan. But the one day when I had started listening to FM radio and British Invasion, rock and roll, I went out and somehow I must have saved up a lot of allowances because I went and bought Cream's Disraeli Gears, Jimi Hendrix's Are You Experienced, and the Beatles' White Album all on the same day, right? And I didn't notice this till later on, but the song you just played, I'll Fix Your Wagon, has kind of elements of all three of those. So those influences are still pretty powerful, apparently, in the songwriting and the sort of the record making kind of thing, because it sort of feels like the groove's a little Manic Depression or something. The bridge sounds a little like I don't know, some Beatle-y quality to it, and the backwards guitars and some of that those slide guitars with the ebow that were those little harmony parts that come in the second verse there. I think I was thinking of like some John Lennon track where he used the strings, like a whole string section on one of those. Maybe it's Imagine or Plastic Ono Band or something like that. There's a little bit of that, and then there's also something simple and bluesy like Cream was doing about it too. There's because it's a blues. I don't know. There's something about the sound and the guitar tone that really comes from the Cream era for me or something. So I didn't notice that till later, like I said, but it's pretty funny.
Your albums are this great buffet.
You try to change yourself a lot, but it's really hard. It's hard to get away from the most powerful early influences, it seems to me. You know?
Well, it always comes around to things the things that you first liked when you were younger. If you really truly like them, they stick with you. I don't believe in phases. I believe that if you truly like something earlier on in your life, you'll always like it. It'll always be an influence.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've always been trying to be careful about that. I don't want to be a victim of nostalgia only. I love to listen to old stuff and really try to be critical. Okay, well, did I just like this because it was popular at the time and we all heard it so many times, or is there some real quality there? And I always try to make sure I know the difference. And it's not always, it's not always great. But I'll tell you, some of the stuff that was great and still is powerfully great for me. And even though I spent quite a long time trying to learn the language of jazz, because my roots were sort of blues and rock guitar and pop radio, I find like that it still feels more like my first language. The jazz, as much as I've loved it and learned from it, it's if I were to try to play pure jazz, it would feel like sort of I was speaking a foreign language. So this record sort of, especially that track, really does sort of remind me of that first language, that first musical language I learned and loved.
Yeah, well, it's great stuff. You poured a lot of different things in that song, and the whole album is great. But I was reading that you're from New Jersey, and back in the day, I was reading your band opened for Springsteen back when he was like a local hero. Is that correct?
We did once or twice. Yeah, it was just before he was about to sort of break on the national scene. He had done a lot of traveling, I think, and had been gigging in L.A. and gigging up in Boston a lot, as well as locally. But it was before Greetings from Asbury Park was released, and so it was just before he really just kind of it big. And he was a local guy. He was from Freehold.
When he was skinny, right?
We played a lot of the same haunts, same like dive bars in Asbury Park, and it was. He used to play our high school dances. Pretty funny.
God, that's
pretty great, actually. It was even great at the time. It was fantastic. It was when people stopped dancing and just started sitting on the floor listening to music. And I remember he had a gig. He had a band called Child, maybe at that time, or maybe it was Earth. I forget. But he had hair like halfway down his back and holes in his blue jeans. And I remember he was playing a Marshall amp, and he had like 2 4x12s, one on each side of the stage where you would normally see a PA. So it was this massive guitar sound. And it was in our cafeteria. It was fantastic. Really great.
Very cool.
He played right. I've always liked the way he played guitar too.
Oh.
Very lyrically and direct. There's no, nothing gets in the way. But there's no weird filters. It's just straight from the heart. And always sounded good to me. I wish he'd play more on his own gigs.
And yeah, exactly. And speaking of straight to the heart, I want to play this track from your album. This is called I Ain't Got You.
Pictures inside the drawer. I got the ring that you don't wear no more. I got my heart, it still beats true. I ain't got you. I got the bed, seems so wide. I got the extra pillow on the other side. I got the room, it's got the view. I ain't got you. I ain't got you. Oh, I've got everything, baby. I ain't got you. Everything from A to Z. I ain't got you. But everything means nothing if you're not here with me. I got the house, it's on the hill. I'm living large and I got time to kill. I got the ocean, the lakefront too. But I ain't got you. Oh, no. I got the pool, I keep it filled with fine champagne that's always perfectly chilled. I got the yacht, it's got the crew. I ain't got you. But I got a room, it's full of Armani suits. I got another room full of snakeskin boots. Arabian horses? Oh, I got a slew. But I ain't got you. I ain't got you. Oh, I've got everything, baby. I ain't got you. Everything from A to Z. I ain't got you. But everything means nothing if you're not here with me. I got the Porsche, I got the Lexus, I got a wine cellar the size of Texas, and I got a bird, she can parlez-vous. I ain't got you. No. Let me parlez-vous a little bit for you. They stop on cue, but I ain't got you.
Totally awesome. Yes. You know, women are important. True Tone Music is a virtual candy store for guitarists and bass players. They're world famous for having the best selection of new and used vintage guitars in the Los Angeles area. Located at 714 Santa Monica Boulevard in the city of Santa Monica, True Tone Music offers the widest selection of exceptionally high quality guitars and basses. They stock name brands like Fender, Gibson, Guild, Epiphone, Gretsch, and much, much more. It's where the top names in the music industry shop for guitars, basses, amps, boutique pedals, and accessories. Whether you want to buy, sell, trade, get guitar lessons or repairs, True Tone Music's super cool staff is there to make your music come to life. They'll also match any online price and back it up with top-notch customer service and support. Visit them online at TrueToneMusic.com or call 310-393-8232. That's 310-393-8232. Ask for Ken. Say, hey, where's Ken? Oscar said, I can talk to you. I want to buy a Gibson 336 exactly like Jon Herington's. Can you help me out? That's what you got to ask. Say, Ken, help me. I want to play like Jon. Hey, man, speaking of your 336, I've always wanted. I've played them in stores, and I think they're just the coolest sounding guitars. I love that feeling, that hollowness vibrating against my rib cage with a good amp behind it. You know.
Yeah.
What made you gravitate toward that particular instrument?
Well, I guess it was. It must have been around 2002 or something like that. I don't know, somewhere around there. It was a very interesting story. A good buddy of mine, who had been a college roommate of mine, an old friend, had basically taken over his father's business, and over the years turned it into this multi-million-dollar enterprise. And he had just sold the company a little bit before that, and he just called me out of the blue one day and said, I'd like to share some of the wealth. You know, it's like, I want you to pick out your favorite guitar. I'm going to buy it for you. And so I said,
oh my God, do you have his phone
all right.
number?
And I said, and I wasn't really particularly in the market for a new guitar, but of course the wheels started turning as soon as he offered that, and I I would casually kind of go shopping. I didn't rush out and say, oh yeah, I know what, because I didn't really know what I wanted. But it occurred to me that I had always enjoyed, because I had spent so much time playing jazz, but really my original roots were blues, rock roots. When I try to imagine, like, okay, well, what would one guitar that would be kind of my go-to guitar, the thing I most often pick up, and the thing that would feel like I could use it for any kind of thing that I typically would want to play. And even though I have a telly and actually a new telly too, but there's something I love about playing tellies. I grew up playing a Les Paul, and there's something about a Gibson that still sounds like, right to me. When it's being overdriven, there's a sound that I love that's a blues rock kind of sound. But also, it's the sort of standard sort of jazz guitar sound as well. I mean, and so, I was leaning towards a Gibson, of course, and I just happened to see it was a pretty new model. It was a custom shop instrument. They weren't making it as a regular issue instrument at the time. It was a sort of a new one, and it was like a shrunken 335 essentially, but a much higher end guitar. Instead of the all maple and the ply top, it has a book matched single top maple top, piece of maple top, and the body is actually carved from one piece of mahogany instead of maple, and it's not in pieces. It's all, the back and sides are all one piece that they hollow out. So, it's quite it's probably a much more expensive instrument to make, and it's got higher end sort of build quality, which may turn into an instrument that you like or may not, because there's something great about the 335s with the laminate top too. I mean, there was nothing wrong with that instrument. But I loved when I saw this instrument, I loved the smaller size. It was much more comfortable. It felt like it was easier to change from the telly to it, and not feel like it required that much adjusting. And it had a great treble pickup that would really overdrive beautifully, like a nice, like fat, warm rock tone you could get. And the neck pickup was surprisingly good when you rolled the tone down. It sounded like a real jazz guitar, even set up with fairly light strings, So it was, it just, I said, oh, well, this might really be the kind of thing I'd go for. And I played one in Rudy's Music on 48th Street in New York, and I really liked it, but I wasn't ready to spring because I hadn't really been looking around and just wanted to think about it more. I went back a couple weeks later, and that guitar was gone, but they had another 336, and I picked it up and played it, and I wasn't impressed with it at all. It just, the instruments are each very individual, and the first one had sounded good to me. It felt good, and I was interested in it. But the second one was, it was a junker to me. It just didn't resonate right. It just wasn't a lucky, bunch of woods, or something was not quite right about it. And so I just kind of dismissed it and thought maybe I just was wrong about it, But then I went back, I don't know, maybe a month later, and that one was gone. And a third one, that looked just like the first one that was in there, had been ordered. And that's the one I bought because it sounded even better than the first one. It was brighter, it was more responsive, real open sounding, even when you played it acoustically. And I made a few little changes over the years to it, but basically it sounded great right out of the box, and it was a gift, and I still consider it, it's probably still my main go-to guitar. If I could only bring one guitar to a gig, it'd probably be that one most of the time.
Wow. Yeah, I love the way you tricked it out too, adding the master volume, and it just, I mean, we're running out of time. I wish I could talk to you for like 5 hours just about everything. Well, we're coming to the end, but I wanted to ask you about your amps, because I know you're using the Guitron and the Bluetone. Are you using both of those again, or just one or the other?
Right now I have both of them set up. In fact, the Bluetone, I have two of them now out on the road because I just got a new one that Brandon Montgomery made for me. And it was a bit of a dream of mine to, I've always, my favorite amp as a kid was a 50-watt Marshall Plexi head, and I used to play it through this Guild Thunder Bass 212 bottom, and I never owned either one. They were borrowed instruments, and but I always remember that sound. And so, but now, I need some pro features. I like an effects loop, and so I asked Brandon if he could make the front end of a Plexi, a 50-watt Plexi, and put a good effects loop in it and a good master volume in it, and just to see if we could get kind of close to that sound that I loved when I was a kid. And he, when Steely Dan was on tour in Denver, near where he is, he's in Littleton, Colorado. I went to his place and checked it out and loved it, and we got an amp switcher hooked up so that I can actually switch to that head from the Guytron. The Guytron is still the one I'm using most of the night because it's, I'm in the habit of using it. It sounds fantastic. It's got a great channel switching, got great effects loop, and so it really works. But there's something so cool and it about the sound of that Bluto tone, and so I've been using it for certain songs where it feels like the right sound, and so for the first time we've got an amp switching setup going on.
I just want you to be happy. That's all I want. I want you to be happy with your sound. Thank you very much. I just want to say it's an honor to have you. I'm a huge Steely Dan fan, diehard. I'm the guy in the aisle singing all the songs who have to be taken out by security because he knows too many Steely Dan songs. Thank you very much for being on the show. If you ever need to borrow my Steely Dan songbook, I got 3 of them. So I know. I just letting you know. Thanks again for coming on the show, man.
It's my pleasure. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Come on anytime. Oh man. Well, that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank our guest, Jon Herington. Set mind to purpose and visit him at jonherington.com and purchase every piece of music he has ever written. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Music Connection Magazine. Visit them at musicconnectionmagazine.com. Also, True Tone Music at truetonemusic.com. And last but not least, Mojave Ampworks. Visit the Oasis of Tone at mojaveampworks.com. Want to become a sponsor? Email me at oscarsguitarshop@gmail.com. Tune in next week when our guest will be legendary guitarist Leslie West. Take care of yourselves. Be nice to each other. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Since she left, the hours stretch into eternity. The sun don't shine, not on my dime. Since she went away, it's half past and I'm half mast. I'm living day to day. I'm sinking fast through the hourglass.